In the wake of the bombshell leak of Justice Samuel Alito's draft opinion seeking to overturn Roe v. Wade, Senate Democrats are trying to advance a bill that would codify abortion rights into federal law, essentially overruling the state's laws. But the proposal failed to pass the Senate today, as was expected. Here's Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell.
So I'm glad the Senate will vote today. We will stand with the American people, stand with innocent life, and block the Democrats' extreme bill.
My decision, my body.
While Democrats were fighting for its passage, the bill titled the Women's Health Protection Act was all but certain to fail in the Senate. This was because Democrats did not have the 60 votes needed to overcome a Republican filibuster. That said, some Democrats are now calling for an end to the filibuster rule, or arguing that there should be an exception made in order to overcome Republicans blocking the Democrats' abortion legislation. And now we'll turn to an update on the current situation at the southern border. This week, Border Patrol agents at one sector in Texas were met with 6 large groups of people who were illegally crossing the border. House Republicans today are taking a stab at the Biden administration's border policies, calling them a display of false compassion. NTD's Melina Wisecup has the story.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection this week arrested more than 1,000 people in a single Texas county. The arrests were made from 6 large groups who were illegally crossing the border in the Rio Grande Valley sector, and it's straining their resources. The sector noted the strain in a press release, writing, quote, "The logistics required to transport and process groups of this size continue to place a strain on manpower and resources."
I don't know of any Border Patrol agent that supports catch and release. I don't know of any of them. I don't know of any agent that supports pulling people out of the field, creating artificial gaps that cartels are then able to exploit. Nobody supports that.
Judd is the president of the National Border Patrol Council. He visited Capitol Hill today to join House Republicans who are decrying the Biden administration's approach to the southern border surge.
We're here to stand up for the forgotten Americans right now who are taking it on the chin, and we're actually standing up for migrants who are being abused in the false name of compassion.
The latest statistics from March revealed that CBP reported over 221,000 migrant encounters, the most in any month during the Biden administration. But the Republicans noted there's more than triple that number who completely escaped Border Patrol.
The almost 750,000 gotaways because our borders are wide open. There are rapists, there are murderers, there are pedophiles, there are aggravated felons. We know there are very bad people among that 750,000. Did I say they were all bad? No, but that's what they'll say that we're telling people. That's not true.
And they say the resource strain is only one of the concerns.
Last year alone, the DEA seized enough fentanyl to kill every American.
China producing it, cartels running it up through our southern border.
So what's the solution? Judd, with on-the-ground knowledge and experience, tells me the first step is policy change.
As long as we reward people for violating our laws when they cross the border illegally, if they're released into the United States, they're going to continue to come. So we have to stop that immediately.
Melina, even with these proposed solutions that the Republicans are putting forth, if they win the majority in the midterms, they'll still be operating under the Biden administration. So how are they planning to move forward with their agenda to change what they're calling these open border policies by the Democrats?
Yes, Steve. So this is a very real obstacle that Republicans do face. The former commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan, told me that one idea could be for Republicans to use this, if they were to take back the majority, to use this as a window of opportunity to pave a path so that the next administration, if it were to be a Republican president, could quickly implement some of these proposed policies. But that is a long way out, and it's unclear how this would pan out, of course. And Republicans are suggesting to kind of use the American people as a vehicle to clarify the true situation of the southern border to the American people, to sort of put pressure on the White House, put pressure on the Biden administration to implement some of these Republican policies. But it's very likely that President Biden would veto any Republican proposal that did make its way to the White House. So even if the Republicans did take back the majority come November, this is a very real obstacle that they will have to face. Steve, back to you.
The United States is facing unprecedented economic challenges, and many experts say a recession could be on the horizon. In response, some members in the United States Congress are calling for more discussion before authorizing more government spending. A vote to authorize another $40 billion for Ukraine passed the House last night, but some members voted against it. One of those members is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. We're happy to have him on to discuss. Congressman Greg Steube, thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Congressman, another $40 billion for Ukraine was voted and passed by the House. You voted against this bill. Could you tell us why that is?
Yeah, several reasons. The first is we just allocated $14 billion. $300+ million was going to weapons. Have those been received in Ukraine? What happened to the initial funding? Why do we need more funding? What happened to the amount of spending that was originally there? $40 billion is the equivalent of DHS, Customs and Border Patrol, Coast Guard, TSA, and ICE combined in one annual spending. We have an invasion on our southern border, record inflation, all sorts of big issues that are affecting our country. I don't understand why we should be borrowing $40 billion from the Chinese to give it to the Ukrainians with absolutely no assurances or safeguards that the money is actually going to go for its intended purpose.
Speaking of the Chinese, some say that where the money is being spent and if it's in the right place is all subjective, and that the bigger question may be, why are we spending so much money and resource on fighting Russia when our most serious adversary is China, who always seems to get a free pass and lurk in the shadows?
Yeah, it's a great question for this administration that's obviously compromised by the Chinese Communist Party and not taking a strong stance against the Chinese Communist Party. John Ratcliffe, the head of our intelligence agency under the Trump administration when he left, said the number one threat facing the safety and security of the American people was the Chinese Communist Party. So absolutely, you're right. We should be focusing on Chinese aggression. We've already given money to the Ukrainians. Trump gave them javelins. We don't know the status of those initial appropriations at the beginning of the war. And I think there's a lot more problems right here in the homeland that should be the focus of the American taxpayers in Congress.
Congressman Steube, I want to ask you about a bill that you introduced not too long ago called Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. If you could, tell us what this bill is aiming to do and what type of progress it might be making in the House.
Yeah, the bottom line is this bill would not allow biological men to compete with women in athletics, Title IX sports. Women's sports was created, Title IX was created in 1973. We're coming up to the 50-year anniversary of Title IX sports for women, and women should be able to compete with women and have all the things that it was created to do when we created Title IX way back in the 70s. And allowing biological men to compete with females on the athletic field is not fair to our women competitors. So what this bill would do is not allow biological men to compete with women in women's collegiate activities or any type of women's athletics. And if these colleges and universities deny that, then they're going to lose federal funding. There's no better way to get the attention of a lot of people who get federal government funding than to take away the amount of money that they get. All these universities get a ton of federal money from the United States government, and if they violate this bill, if this bill were to become law, then they would lose their federal funding. We filed a discharge petition on the floor. It's the only way that the minority can get the attention of the speaker and force a vote. We're over 110 co-signers on the discharge petition. Yesterday, Leader McCarthy signed it and said that he was going to make this one of the top bills that would be passed in the first 100 days when Republicans take the majority back.
My follow-up was going to ask you what type of support you're getting from your colleagues, but I think you just answered it. There seems to be a lot of culture wars brewing right now throughout the country, especially in your state of Florida. One I'd like to get your thoughts about is the issue with Disney. Is what Governor DeSantis has done by stripping them of their special status, you have other lawmakers wanting to take away their copyright protections, an overreach in your opinion?
No, I don't think that a single company should get special privileges just because of the size of their company in Florida. And Disney's getting privileges through the state law that people like Universal, that's a neighboring infrastructure there in Orlando, that they don't get. So why should we be why should the law give preferential treatment to one company over the other? I certainly support what the governor and the legislature has done to equal the playing field as it relates to competitiveness in corporations.
Congressman Greg Steube, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey there, I'm Steve Lance, host of NTD's Capitol Report. Just want to thank you for tuning in. To catch our full broadcast and other amazing content, watch us over at epochtv.com. That's EPOCH TV.com.